Hello, Walpole. My name is Ellen Curran, and I am your host for Walpole Green. Each month, we present to you a topic related to the climate crisis and what we can do about it. I am a member of Walpole Green. Walpole Green is a group of Walpole citizens dedicated to a healthy environment and achieving 100% renewable energy. We believe in protecting our natural resources and addressing the climate crisis in Walpole, our state, our country, and the world. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce to you David Ruggiero. In July 2021, the town hired an energy manager, David Ruggiero. Mr. Ruggiero has been employed in the high-performance building industry for more than 20 years. He has worked as a lead accredited professional, a certified energy auditor, and for 13 years in ICF International as a consultant with a focus on energy efficiency and renewable energy. He has been involved with a wide range of innovative green building projects and programs ranging from Energy Star to Passive House and the DOE's Better Building Challenge. Closer to home, he has served as an advisor on the 2009 Massachusetts Net Zero Energy Building Task Force, managed the Massachusetts Zero Energy Challenge, and the Mass CEC's Green Affordable Housing Initiative. He is a Norwood resident, the chairman of the Town Sustainability Committee, and is a town meeting member. Presently, Mr. Ruggiero serves as the energy manager for the towns of Norwood, Sharon, and Walpole via a cooperative agreement. His primary responsibility is to administer the Green Communities Program for each town, but he works on other municipal energy initiatives such as EV charging stations and fleet development and renewable energy and battery storage systems. In Walpole, he has already secured a Regional Energy Plan Assistance, which is REPA grant. The grant was awarded in September of 2021 and will assist in developing a net zero emissions plan for municipal buildings and operations to help meet the requirements, the Massachusetts 2020-50 decarbonization roadmap. A solar energy initiative is also moving forward with 3 school properties are being evaluated for solar installations: Old Post Road, Fisher, and the Robbins Road parking lot. The solar grant applications and project scopes are in the early stages of development, but will result in a combined 20-year lifetime cost savings and revenue stream of $800,000. Welcome, David, to our program. So happy that you're able to come and join us. And I have some questions. Are you ready?
I am ready. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, good. Please describe your job as energy manager and who do you work with to help with the goals?
Sure. Well, you touched on it in the introduction, and thank you for those kind words. My primary job is to administer the Green Communities Program for each of the communities. That's what started this position. And I've been working at that for just short of 2 years now. So Green Communities, as you may know, is a municipal commitment. The town municipal portfolio commits to reducing its energy use by 20% over 5 years. But along with that, managing that grant and managing those efforts, I tend to work, as you said, on other initiatives, whether they're solar related, EV charging, any carbon related and carbon reduction. So that's, that's really the focus of my time. As to who I'm working with, I report to each of the general manager's offices, usually the assistant general managers in each of the towns. But I'm working with facility staff, I'm working with DPW staff, anyone that has their hand in energy consumption. So you can imagine that the schools consume a lot of energy, the town fleet consumes a lot of energy. And right now in Walpole with the streetlight upgrade, working with DPW. I also work with a lot of communities, or excuse me, community organizations and committees within the various towns, non-governmental agencies, anyone that can lead to funding or has some, I guess, some sway or some influence in the towns. And then finally, I work with the utilities and energy service providers to help bring, more money and more energy services to the town. So it's a full list. There you go.
Yeah, quite a bit. Can you talk more about working with the utilities?
Sure. Well, most energy efficiency money that exists and that is available in the state is paid by the ratepayers. If you look at any electric bill, any gas bill, any metered bill that you pay has a line item for energy efficiency, for low income assistance, and for renewable energy, 3 specific line items. And the utilities are charged with implementing efficiency plans. And various state agencies are in charge of implementing renewable plans or fuel changing plans, as it were. So in working with the utility companies, the Mass Save program is the driver. Every time you open up a utility page, you see Mass Save, and all the investor-owned utilities participate in that, standardize the plans. I meet regularly with a gentleman, his name is Steve Gratton. He administers the municipal portfolio for most of Norfolk County. So when I'm dealing with issues in Sharon or Walpole, I talk with Steve. He was instrumental in helping us secure, it appears to be 100% of the financing for materials and labor for the streetlight upgrade, based on, their needs and their funding availability. So in working with them, it's identifying the best energy saving opportunities. And quite recently, that focus has shifted to the best carbon reduction strategies as well. And then matching them up with dollars to assist in implementing those programs. So.
Okay, thank you. How many hours a week do you work for Walpole? And what are the opportunities and challenges of working for 3 communities simultaneously?
Okay. Well, the agreement as it is structured right now is I spend a third of my time in each of the communities. So it's about 13, 14 hours a week. I wouldn't say that's true every week. Some days I may spend, or weeks, I could spend, 20, 30 hours in one community. And then that transitions into the next week of spending that amount of time in another. But at the end of the day, the end of the year, about a third, and a third. My week is typically spent, I try to structure it Monday and Fridays at my home office, paperwork, catching up, planning out, or wrapping up the week. And I've developed a schedule Tuesdays in Norwood. I usually check in with the general manager to start my day, or the general manager's office, and meet various department heads, check in on projects as needed. The same is true in Walpole on Wednesday and Sharon on Thursday. But again, at any given point in time, I may be needed in all 3 communities in any one day, and I go where I'm needed. So as best as I can, I spend as much time in each community as they need it, when they need it. And as far as the opportunities, when Walpole joined up a year after I had started, so I was working in Norwood and Sharon for the first year, I developed, connections and administrative procedures for administering the Green Communities Grant. And Walpole just stepped right into that. They didn't have to reinvent it. They didn't have to appoint anyone. the learning curve is not so steep, but it does require a level of commitment. So they were able to take advantage of that. And also just familiarity with, as we touched on, utility savings programs and incentive programs. As they change, you've got one set of eyes on them for all three communities. Grant opportunities the same way. I think the first year working with Norwood and Sharon, I wrote several grants, wrote them for Norwood first, and then just popped in the name Sharon in the next set of paperwork, submitted them, and lo and behold, the grants were approved, and that's great. There's not as much administrative burden for the town. So that's been one of the primary responsibilities, or one of the primary opportunities. So what else did you, I think you asked for challenges as well.
Yes.
Any one day, I'm not quite sure where I'm going. So that can be, I always kid, I go down Pleasant Street, right to Route 27. I go left to Sharon, right to Walpole, or turn around and come right back to Norwood. That's how I start my days. I think the different utility services are probably the most, I wouldn't say taxing. It's Sharon and Walpole are serviced by Eversource for both electric and gas. Norwood is serviced by National Grid Gas and by Norwood Municipal Light. So there's three utility companies in play there. So that can be interesting. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges. Not everyone's on the same page, and I'm trying to get everyone on that same page. So.
Okay, can you expand on that?
In terms of them not being on the same page.
Yeah.
Well, I think that some of the differences that would serve as an example, Sharon is perhaps further up the learning curve in the Green Communities program, and I think town-wide efforts to decarbonize and bring greater levels of efficiency. So they're much more active, proactive in bringing solar projects, bringing battery storage projects, electrifying fleets. Energy efficiency is one of many tools that they're using. So there's a lot of interaction with utility reps to get projects certified and moving forward. And that's a whole different mindset, a lot of legal review documents being reviewed, where in Norwood, you're not going to have as much solar because it's an electric municipality and the numbers aren't there yet. The savings numbers or the dollar incentives aren't there. Walpole, we're just starting in on some of basic green community initiatives, so that conversations tend to be more on energy efficiency and less on a higher level or more, I would say, more cutting edge programs. So it's putting on many hats on any one day. I have three colored folders. That's how I tend to organize my life right now. Blue for Norwood, the Mustangs, red for the Timberwolves now for Walpole, and then sort of a golden BC color for the Sharon Eagles, and that's how I keep track of things. So.
Oh, okay, interesting. How they're in a different place. So I guess you sort of answered my next question was, how does it differ from working for Walpole? How does it differ from Norwood and Sharon? Can you add anything to that?
Sure. Sharon has a long history of very active appointed committees. They have an energy advisory committee. They have a municipal solar oversight committee. I serve as the town liaison to both of those committees. They're very active. They have a lot of deep roots in the community and in the town hall. So when I say that they have 6 solar projects under development or functioning and battery storage systems, that's a lot for a community of that size. Norwood is a little a few years behind that curve. They do have some committees. Again, I serve on the the Sustainability Commission that Norwood has appointed. And they're starting to make inroads and starting to make some smart choices in rallying the town and moving things forward. I don't see that as much in Walpole, though I really do feel sort of a groundswell of interest and activity. So that's really some of the major differences is just how involved the community is in driving these initiatives forward. So,
Where is the groundswell, as you said? Where is it coming from in Walpole? Who are they?
Well, I would say, every day, regardless of the community that I'm in, within the municipal government, I see a lot of interest, a lot of planning going on to bring in, I guess, newer technologies to participate in energy reduction or carbon reduction, to be aware of it. When I was approached a few months ago by one of the custodians in a school in Sharon, never spoken to the gentleman before. And he just looked at me and he said, "Can you expand on the carbon reduction policies that the state just adopted?" It was like, okay, I'm having this conversation and, in a school with one of the custodial staff. That's great to hear and great to know. But different people within, I would say, Walpole, a few people that I do, a few of the friends that I have there sit on the Economic Development Committee. They're interested in bringing, revitalizing the downtown, bringing in charging stations. Different regional organizations, the Ponset River and Charles River watershed associations have been reaching out to me. So those are some of the examples where individuals are coming up to me or organizations within the towns asking for assistance, asking for updates.
How has Walpole benefited since you came on board?
That's a good question, and I'm going to point to three examples. The first is I started shortly after Walpole received their Green Communities designation. With that designation, there's a fair amount of paperwork that's required to formalize the agreement and get the designation grant flowing into the town. And that was dispatched pretty quickly because I had done that 2 other times. So, Walpole just sort of plug and play and an administrator that is well connected. And then we launched the energy initiative to replace all of the street lights. Again, sitting down with with the utility companies, finding out, hey, we have a unique program that's good through the end of the year. We pay for 100% of the hard cost on the product and labor. So that was a good example of the benefit that Walpole reaped in creating this position. Also, the fact that as I started, I had applied for a regional energy program assistance grant, a REPA grant, which would help each of the communities. And again, I submitted an application on behalf of all 3 communities. Regional applications have greater appeal to the state and better chance of winning the award if you include more than one community. And each of the communities was looking at or had approved a new school. Sharon had a high school, and Norwood and Walpole, because Walpole has approved their middle school. Norwood town meeting was moving forward with it, and we have a general election on the 4th to approve a tax override. But the REPA grant will allow the towns to develop a zero energy emissions protocol and operations manual, so they understand we have new technologies, there's new ways of operating buildings, and this will help prepare facilities and the town for that reality. So that was a nice little find. And also, quite recently, just a few weeks ago, all 3 towns were approved for participation in the Mass Save Community First Partnership Program. This is something that I did through the Norwood Sustainability Commission, not specifically tied to my job with the town of Norwood or in the work that I do in the 3 communities. But the Community First Partnership focuses on creating a position, and we're interviewing for that position now, a liaison to the community, to residents and businesses, specifically environmental justice block community residents, so lower income, English as a second language, or renters. And these tend to be individuals that are the least served by efficiency programs. So we will be hiring an energy advocate. It's a part-time position to do outreach to the communities. We've been in touch with the Council of Aging, with food banks, with church organizations, to start connecting people with this large influx of energy efficiency money that was recently approved by the state. So Walpole has benefited from really the familiarity of grants and being included in regional efforts. So there you have it.
Question, to go back to what you first were talking about. You were talking about improving electrical in buildings, I guess more efficient electrical, energy.
Sure.
Is that existing buildings?
Yes. Well, there are two types of efficiency programs, which is for new construction or existing buildings. So new construction, the middle school is participating in a number of programs to help create the most efficient building, and possibly at least a net zero energy ready building. And if everything falls into line and if the town approves it, it could be a zero energy building if solar is included in battery storage components. But that's a few months away, I would think.
And
it's terms of a discussion being had.
Yeah, and the building is supposed to be solar ready.
Correct. So solar ready, and the focus now for the Mass Save program and the DPU is not to count energy savings, but to count carbon savings. So net zero is now, net carbon neutral or net zero carbon. They can go hand in hand, though they're interdependent on one another. But existing building upgrades, there is a large push to electrify buildings, to remove fossil fuels, so oil, natural gas, propane, and replace them with really heat pump technology. Some buildings are, prime candidates for that. And if you're doing a large retrofit on a building, that's probably something that should be considered. What happens to the Johnson Middle School when the new middle school opens and I know there's, if you ask 10 people, you'll get 20 different opinions on what will happen to that building. But if it undergoes any sort of retrofit or a rehabilitation using heat pump technology might not be a bad investment, considering how much money is out there from the utilities to do that work. So.
Okay, so I know that the police station, for example, is a relatively new building. Do you know if there's any possibility of improving its efficiency or carbon output?
Which building was that again?
Police station.
Oh, the police station. Yeah, I'm just starting to get into the buildings and look at hard data. It's a lot of the work that I do is driven by consumption patterns. How long has the building been operating? What is its use of electricity versus natural gas? Really calculating what's known as the energy use intensity of a building. You'll become familiar with that term as the middle school starts launching more information and more public facing information. They have to meet a standard of, it's called 25 EUI, 25 units of energy per square foot. That's the intensity. The police station, the community, the Council on Aging buildings opened up just about the time the pandemic was hitting. So You saw disruptions in energy patterns. Certain buildings consumed sometimes 100% more natural gas because of poor ventilation. Open the windows and heat the building so everyone stays warm and get rid of COVID or make it safer. So to answer your question, I haven't taken a hard look at the police station
Mhm.
or some of the newer buildings because they just don't have set patterns of energy use that you can draw conclusions upon or make recommendations. But I think, Annie, going back to the REPA grant, operations and maintenance, these newer buildings have building management systems, bringing in a review protocol of those systems and all the data points that they're gathering can help identify energy saving opportunities or systems that may need to be tweaked. More and more, I'm seeing a call, across the industry to have really, I guess it's a term that I favor, which is a desktop facilities managers, someone that can sit down and look at the different buildings and how they're performing as a quick check to see if systems are functioning properly. Nothing beats having feet on the street, people in the buildings, and living there, working there, and understanding it. But this is another layer that those buildings you can take advantage of because those buildings have been really hardwired and designed for that in mind. So,
Oh, excellent. Okay, what are you working on now? And you've been talking about it, and does this include buying electric vehicles for the town, electrical charging stations for the town, and solar panel grants, including a reduction of 20% of consumption of fossil fuels over the next 5 years?
okay.
Long
Sure.
question.
There's, I'll give you a long answer. So what I'm working on now with the streetlight project is pretty much out of my hands at this point. I'll get involved again in a few months when the work wraps up. We'll start tracking the energy savings and start closing out the project. It's important that we close it out by June 1st to take advantage of the utility money that is being offered. They have a hard deadline to complete the work by June 1st, and also to set ourselves up for the next round of Green Communities funding. So that's always on my mind, looking for the next opportunity. It's a September submission date for Green Communities. We can apply for $200,000 or $500,000 in project support. So a lot of my work right now is looking for those opportunities. I toured all of the schools over the February vacation, just becoming more familiar with them, taking a long, hard look at the energy data, and again, talking to the maintenance staff. They're the people that know what needs to get done and where all the skeletons are in the closets, as it were. So outside of Green Communities, Mike Frisch and I from the school department, we have been working several months now to really to advocate for these 3 solar developments at Fisher, Old Post, and at Robbins, right across from the Johnson Middle School, the Robbins parking lot. And that's taking, a fair amount of time dealing with getting contracts ready, getting the sites approved, getting interconnection agreements with the utilities in place. Because we're working with, we have a memorandum of understanding with a solar developer approved by the state. So those projects are critical to reducing costs or keeping costs stable and reducing carbon. Renewables are not an energy efficiency measure. It's just clean production of energy, not the reduction of energy. And as far as the other items that you had mentioned, whether EV charging stations or fleet electrification, there's a round of interest when I first started in EV charging stations. Grants were not filed at this time. I think General Manager's office is looking for, I guess, some new sites and some new program information. I started just as utility programs were wrapping up and new ones were going to be coming out. I had submitted EV charging station grants for Norwood and Sharon and waited a year to hear back from the the whether or not we were awarded the grants. We were, but a lot of the deadlines were difficult to meet. But there are several sites that have been vetted in in Walpole, and I think this next round of funding will revisit that.
Mhm.
As far as fleet electrification, I know the green communities grant money allows a certain amount of the money to be used to electrify, bring in plug-in hybrids, bring in electric vehicles. That's something that will be under discussion in the coming months as we prepare the grant application. But I'm also working with the school department, with Mike Frisha, on the fleet electrification for the transit system that he runs for the schools, the small buses, which are housed at the Robbins Road lot, which is why we want to bring solar there. We want to bring EV charging stations there, and fleet electrification is probably one of the smartest moves that a community could make, because it not only does it reduce cost and reduce carbon, but there's added benefit to have mobile batteries that are fully charged. The utilities will pay you for the right to use those batteries in times of peak demand. There's a revenue stream that comes into the community with that agreement, or the community could choose not to participate in those plans and just use those mobile batteries to go to critical areas, to a senior center, to a shelter, to help, supplement generators, or, so in terms of a resiliency plan and a comprehensive cost savings, energy savings, and carbon savings plan, fleet electrification is huge. It is, the conversations I'm having with each of the communities are intensifying, becoming more frequent. I can't say that there's any solid movement going forward, other than a number of people are tracking funding opportunities and starting to, have some serious and frequent conversations on it. So.
Okay, so it sounds like the town's still investigating where they could have the charging stations.
They
Am I
are.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of public access charging stations, they are. I know there were a few stations that are being put in Walpole by private concerns, and you can Google that if you the charge point tracking system, which charge point tends to control most of the EV business in this, or charging business in the state. So they have great apps. They have great maps on that you can get on computers to find stations, where they've been installed, their availability, their cost for charging. But I'd like to think that 2022, towards the end of the year, we'll definitely be revisiting that for the town.
I know that Patriot Place has some
Yes,
charging stations.
they do, and all up and down Route 1, you're seeing more and more. So any new development, the new middle school will have them. I think at some point the state is just going to say any funding must include, charging stations sufficient. I think it's, in some instances, 20% of the parking spaces. You must have enough charging stations to cover 20% of the capacity of the lot.
Oh, wow.
They're figuring, someone's going to need to charge at least once every 5 to 7 days. Not everyone's going to be charging on the same day. Most people will be charging at home, or in a designated area. Like the DPW yard will eventually have a charging station once, fleets start to build up. The Robbins Road parking lot, if they have the solar canopy or not, would have to have EV charging stations if the fleet is electrified. So you'll see some movement in the next few years. The infrastructure plan approved by Congress has $5 billion in fleet electrification incentives. So the US Post Office is committed to converting their fleet to electric vehicles.
That would be perfect.
Yeah, so it's not going away, and it's getting out ahead of everyone else. So you get the choice awards and the timely awards. So that's what we're working on.
Thank you. What is the energy strategy in town? Who has developed it and who is responsible for it? And this is separate from the Green Community Energy Reduction Plan.
Yeah, that was an interesting question. The three towns that I work in, I've never seen a community-wide plan. My job is to focus on green communities, which is the municipal side. I know Walpole has adopted at town meeting a resolution for the municipal energy use to be carbon neutral or 100% renewable by 2050. Sharon has adopted made a commitment to reduce town-wide use to be carbon neutral by 2050. And Norwood has not yet done that, but I'm working on that. But in each of the communities, the conversations are coming up. Hey, we made this commitment. We know that there are laws in place. We know that there's funding to take advantage of. Do we have a master plan in place yet? I know the town planner, Pat Deschaines, is working on a new master plan for Walpole. I've answered a few questions for him, provided him some municipal energy use data. I'm not that much involved with his work, so I'm sure that there are segments which we'll deal with, with resiliency and with other concerns and with energy use and carbon emissions. But to answer your question, I don't know of a plan in any of the towns that address town-wide, energy reduction. That's not to say it's not being worked on. Again, the Community First Partnership program that I mentioned earlier, small grant, 3 years, $105,000 to help bring awareness to appoint a point person for businesses and residents to ask questions to help as a liaison between the utility programs and their concerns. So that's part of the solution. And I think in time, the communities will start looking for a more formal plan. I think they will be required by law as well at some point.
So here's a thought.
Sure.
You know that there's a master, as you said, there's a master plan that they're forming. Would it make sense for you to look at the master plan before it's formalized, to put your input? Is that going to happen?
Well, it is happening. I guess in Norwood and Sharon, chairing the Sustainability Commission, we're starting that process. We just did a greenhouse gas inventory of all of the town energy use to really to give a visual display to folks to start looking at the hard numbers. Similar efforts are being undertaken in Sharon that I serve on as a liaison to 2 committees in Sharon. My input is always asked for, feedback, buy-in from the community. So I think, I think one of the questions that you have lined up, I don't want to jump ahead. What is it that people can do? I'm asked that all of the time. What is it that people can do? And I would say, I've seen a lot of good come out of the appointment of committees specific to renewable energy and energy efficiency. Having a voice in the town hall, having a voice in front of the selectmen or town meeting is critical. And I've been able to gain some leverage in moving the work that I do forward as a result of those committees. So I think more community engagement, appointed positions can be very helpful. So that's, I think, critical to developing a plan. And it just can't be the input that I have, though it'd be great if you had many professionals. And I know many professionals who live in Walpole. Some of my friends who've been working in this industry longer than I have, that have, um, I don't want to say better skill sets. I won't sell myself short, but have unique skill sets in the energy industry that I don't have. I could point to a handful of people who I talk with regularly to get some guidance from, to get some input from. They are Walpole residents, and I'm sure that there are many, many more that fit that bill that I don't know about, and that the town should avail itself to. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Let's see. Knowing that Walpole lags behind many communities in energy efficiency, energy reduction, and carbon reduction, what are your recommendations for the town's approach to the climate crisis?
Well, one of them, I had just said, more interaction, from the town hall perspective, appointing some committees I've found to be quite effective. But as far as individual efforts from residents, I think there are two things that they can do immediately. One is just get Mass Save out to your house immediately. There's $3.94 billion that has been earmarked for energy efficiency measures over the next 3 years. 800 million of that is for electrification, the installation of heat pumps. If you have an old furnace or boiler, if you have an oil boiler in your house, you can qualify for $10,000 to $12,000 to get a new heating system put in your house, which is going to be three and a half times more efficient than what you have now. So just from a personal investment, that's huge. It'll save energy, it'll save money, and it will save carbon. I also know that Walpole has a municipal aggregation plan in place where residents can opt in to buy energy in aggregate through a supplier. I believe the program is up for renewal in a few months' time, and they do have 100% renewable energy option. It's less than a penny more per kilowatt hour. If you want to make a difference, opt into that 100% renewable energy. It's probably the best way to grow the industry in terms of producing renewable power, making it local, making it clean. So those are two very critical moves that you can do immediately. Supporting the middle school project, learning a little bit more about that. That's cutting edge technology. That's how buildings will be designed, all new buildings, and even retrofits. And again, you've agreed to use state money on a set plan. It's energy intensity of 25. Most schools in Walpole are around 65 to 75. So this is going to use a third less energy than all of the existing schools. And if the project is carried out to, I would say to a logical extreme, or to the point that it could be, which is don't just make it zero or zero energy ready or solar ready. Explore the possibility of putting solar on the school, putting solar on the parking lot, bringing in battery storage. I'm seeing the numbers in a number of communities. So Sharon is doing that now. And I did this for years with DOE, vetting projects and documenting their successes. The financial models are there that would make solar installation, a no-cost enterprise for the town, and it could bring it to zero energy. So it takes a little bit of work, a little bit of foresight. But I think every community that I've dealt with, and it's not just these three, again, across the nation, people step up. They've got great capacity. It's not all that difficult, and it can be fun to learn. So I would say those are some of the, key elements. Mass save, get them to your house, opt into 100% of the municipal aggregation green power choice, and just figure out what's going on in the town. Solar projects, the new building, can teach you a lot about how you can reinvent, the energy grid and energy use in the town.
Okay. So, it sounds like you have a lot of knowledge about heat pumps.
I'm gaining more and more.
Mm.
I have them in my house. They come up in conversation and a large number of projects I'm involved with firsthand now are using heat pump technology. I don't profess to be an expert. I know enough. I know enough to be dangerous, and I know enough to keep my mouth shut when I don't know the answer. So, but I know there's a lot of money being put behind them, and if you look back, the history of heat pumps in the Northeast 20 years ago, they were not favored. The technology to operate in a cold weather climate did not exist. And today, cutting edge technology has heat pumps working efficiently at minus 17 degrees. So it used to be, if you got down below freezing, it was a concern. And then it became 17 degrees, 5 degrees, 0 degrees. Now it's down to minus 17. So,
That's excellent.
So it's, I point to several things when I talk. And one is, a smartphone. Every few years, everyone upgrades their smartphone, their technology. It increases exponentially every few years. And that's not just true with something we carry around in our hip pocket or our purse. But it's new technology for heating hot water, for heating spaces, for electric use in general. So,
okay, thank you so much. I think this is a good place to stop. You've given us a lot of information. I appreciate so much your knowledge and the fact that you are working for Walpole, and thank you for coming. So appreciated.
All right. Well, you can put up my contact information if you want. You can share that. And I would remind people that in the next few months, we will be launching that Community First Partnership Program. The state is preparing a landing page and a hotline for the Norwood Sharon Walpole Partnership. And they'll have access to an energy advocate to answer their questions, to help them through whatever questions they may have and whatever issues they may have in trying to electrify their homes, make them more efficient, and make them cheaper to operate. So,
okay, very good.
There you have
Thank
it.
you again.
All right. Thank you.
I just want to say that during our next episode, we will have some local organizations involved in Walpole. And I hope that you have an interest to be watching that. And also, please check out our Walpole Green Facebook page. Lots of interesting articles. If you scroll down, it's unbelievable what we offer for information. And thank you, goodbye, and I'll see you next month.